Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I live in a senior housing community for people aged 55 and older. Our cottages are arranged in groups of 4, so all our front doors face each other. From my door, I can see my 3 neighbors' doors and the parking area. They designed it to create a friendly atmosphere, but it feels invasive. I moved here 3 years ago after my disability progressed to the point where I couldn't handle the stairs in my old apartment anymore. The rent here is subsidized, which helps since I'm living on disability payments that barely cover expenses. I'm 57, disabled with degenerative disc disease, and own a 16-year-old pickup truck that gets me around most of the time. I bought my truck brand new when I was still working as an office manager at a construction company. It was my first major purchase, and I've babied it ever since. Anyone who's owned a pickup knows everyone suddenly needs help moving furniture or hauling things they can't fit in their car. People think trucks can be scratched, dented, and treated like construction equipment without the owner caring. I care a lot about my truck because it represents my independence. Without it, I'd be stuck relying on public transportation, which is terrible in our small town. When I moved in, I tried to be friendly with everyone, including my neighbor across from me. Let's call her Karen. She's about 65 and has looked unhappy since day one. Before I moved in, I heard from other neighbors that Karen had gone through 3 roommates in 2 years because nobody could stand living with her. She seemed to think the entire community existed to serve her needs. Karen's routine is to knock on my door, chat for 2 minutes, then ask for something. I've set up her TVs, programmed her alarm clock, filled out her food stamps paperwork, completed her lease forms, read her mail, driven her places, and loaned her bus money. That's just some of what she's asked for. I once caught her trying to use my garden hose to wash her car when I wasn't home. Another time, she borrowed my vacuum cleaner and returned it with the hose clogged and the bag completely full. She never says thank you when I help her. She acts entitled to everyone's assistance, not just mine. One Monday morning, Karen pounded on my door around 8 a.m. I'm a night owl, so this woke me up. My doctor has me on medication that makes early mornings particularly difficult. Her knock is what I call a cop knock, loud and relentless. I went to the door half asleep to find her holding her gas bill. She told me she needed a ride to the gas company office and handed me the paper. I looked for a phone number she could call instead, but noticed the bill was only $17. Too tired to argue, I agreed to take her. She made me wait 10 minutes while she got ready, even though she was the one who woke me up. She told me where to go, which turned out to be just a payment center. I dropped her at the entrance, parked, and waited. While waiting, I had to pay $4 for parking because she took longer than the free 15-minute grace period. 10 minutes later, she came out looking frustrated. She told me they couldn't help her there and wondered if she should call them about payment plans since she didn't have the money. I thought she should have called first before making me drive her, but I just agreed and took her home. We wasted gas in my morning for nothing. I later learned from our neighbor Mary that Karen had spent $60 at the bingo hall the night before. 2 days later, she woke me up again with loud knocking just before 9 a.m. She urgently asked for another ride, being vague about where we were going. She said something about bills going to collections or services getting shut off. She only told me it was down by the casino, across from a gas station. I agreed to help, thinking someone in her money situation shouldn't have debt collectors after them. Before we left, she asked to stop at an ATM so she could check her balance. She withdrew $80 while I waited in the truck. She gave me directions until we reached the casino entrance road. I looked around confused because there were no other businesses nearby. When I asked where I was dropping her, she pointed to the valet sign. I realized she tricked me into taking her to the casino itself. The woman who couldn't pay a $17 gas bill on Monday was going gambling on Wednesday. I dropped her off without comment but felt angry about being tricked. Later that evening, I saw her being dropped off by a taxi carrying a shopping bag from the casino gift shop. A week later, I ran into Karen at the rental office while paying my rent. She asked why I hadn't told her I was coming to the office, saying she had walked all the way there. I told her I didn't know she needed a ride but offered to drive her home. I noticed the office manager giving me a sympathetic look as Karen complained loudly about having to walk. I waited while she paid her rent and we walked out together. I planned to drive the 4 blocks back home, but Karen wanted me to take her to a store called Everything's Cheap. When I asked where that was, she told me to turn at the stop sign and said it wasn't far. The store turned out to be nearly 15 miles away on the other side of town. I told her I would take her there but wouldn't wait in the parking lot for her. She would need to find another way home or walk. She said it was fine and that she wouldn't be long. I noticed she had a cell phone in her purse, making me wonder why she always claimed she couldn't call places or arrange her own rides. I dropped her off and went home. On my way, I spotted the bus stop right in front of the store, confirming my suspicion that she could have taken public transportation but preferred a free ride. 2 hours later, she knocked on my door angrily. She demanded to know where her ride went. I told her I went home, just as I warned her I would. She complained about carrying all her stuff home and said her back hurt. I just reminded her that I had warned her beforehand. She walked away and slammed her door. Later that night, I saw her showing off new purchases to another neighbor, suggesting her back wasn't hurting too badly after all. Mary told me Karen had been telling everyone I promised to pick her up and abandoned her. Several months passed before I saw Karen at the rental office again. During this time, our area was hit by 2 major hurricanes that caused significant damage to the community. My roof leaked, and I had to deal with insurance claims and contractors while managing my worsening back condition. Karen apparently had her windows damaged, but convinced maintenance staff to prioritize her repairs over other residents with worse damage. She asked for a ride to the Social Security office. By now, my truck had mechanical issues, needing a new starter and gaskets to fix an oil leak. Between lockdowns, a back problem that kept me in bed for weeks, and the hurricanes, I hadn't fixed it yet. The mechanic quoted me $475 for the repairs, which I was saving up for from my limited income. She tried to convince me it was just a few blocks away and complained about the heat. I told her I couldn't risk my truck breaking down with no way to get home. She insisted it would be fine, but I refused. She hit the side of my truck and kept walking. A maintenance worker who saw this later told me Karen had been asking everyone about my truck's problems. I drove home listening to the worrying sounds from my aging truck. My friend who was going to help me fix it had to delay coming because he was working overtime at the hospital during the pandemic. 3 days later at 7:15 a.m., the loud knocking started again. I was very annoyed by now and pulled the door open. Karen stood there with her purse and keys, assuming I'd say yes to whatever she wanted. She told me she needed to go to the mattress store to pick up her new queen-size mattress. I couldn't believe she was buying a new mattress when she claimed she couldn't afford to pay her utility bills. I refused, saying my truck still wasn't running right. She said she needed my truck to haul the mattress home. I refused again. She claimed it wasn't a heavy mattress. I asked who would help load and unload it. She suggested we could do it together. I told her I have degenerative disc disease with discs in my spine that are breaking down, making it impossible to lift a mattress even with help. My last MRI showed 3 herniated discs and significant narrowing of my spinal canal. My doctor had specifically warned me against lifting anything heavier than 10 pounds. She complained about already buying the mattress and not knowing how to get it home. I suggested she call friends or family. She said they didn't have trucks. I wondered why she didn't arrange delivery before purchasing something so large. When she pointed out that I had one, I reminded her there was no sign on my truck saying free moving company. I closed the door and went back to bed. An hour later, someone else knocked. It was an older man I'd never seen before. He asked if the truck in the parking lot was mine. I felt suspicious and noticed Karen watching through her door. I had seen this man visiting Karen's place several times over the past month. I told him it was mine. He told me he had an upright piano he needed to move and wanted to use my truck. I refused. He suggested I could drive while he just needed the piano taken to storage. I asked how he planned to get a piano into my truck bed. He said he'd roll it up a ramp into the back. I had to explain that an upright piano is too heavy for one person to push up a ramp. It would break my tailgate and my truck wasn't designed for that weight. I knew from my construction company days that an upright piano weighs between 400 and 800 pounds. It would lift the front end, preventing traction, and strain my old engine. He asked if I could call 4 or 5 male friends to help lift it. The suggestion was ridiculous since I had already mentioned my back problems to Karen. I refused again. I closed the door thinking he was helping Karen get her mattress. Through my window, I saw him return to Karen's place, confirming my suspicions. It was clear Karen wanted my truck and would use anyone to get it. The next morning, knocking started again. I ignored it completely even though it continued every half hour for 3 hours. I took a video of her repeated knocking to document the harassment. I considered reporting her to management but decided to wait and see if she would stop. That afternoon, I opened my door to check my mailbox when another strange man approached me suddenly. He was younger than the first man, maybe in his 40s, and wore work clothes. He also asked if the truck was mine. I asked sarcastically if it was obvious because it was parked in my numbered space or because someone told him whose truck it was. I had noticed him talking with Karen earlier that morning. I looked toward Karen's house. When he asked if the truck ran, I told him I didn't know what he wanted me to move or haul, but made it clear I wasn't a moving company, taxi, or tow truck. I said I wouldn't do any of those things or let anyone else drive my truck. To my surprise, he asked if I wanted to sell it. I asked why I would want to do that. He suggested that since it needed fixing, I might want to sell it to someone who could afford repairs. He offered me $800, far below the truck's value of at least $3,000, even with its current issues. When I asked how he knew it needed fixing, he stared at the ground. He mumbled that if I sold it, I could buy something else while he fixed my old truck. I told him to tell Karen I wasn't selling her my truck through him. He denied planning to give it to her. I pointed to his new truck parked in Karen's space. His truck looked like a recent model worth at least $30,000. I asked why he would want my 16-year-old truck needing repairs when he had a brand new one. While he stared at the ground, Karen's door opened. She walked toward us looking angry. She told me to sell him the truck so he could fix it, saying I wasn't going to repair it soon anyway. She said she would use it better because she needed it more than me. Since he would fix it for her, she thought I should sell it. I later learned from another neighbor that Karen had been bragging about getting a truck soon. I told her my truck wasn't for sale, and when I fixed it was none of her business. She threatened to call management about my broken down truck, claiming they would make me fix it or remove it. I knew this was an empty threat because I had already spoken with management about my situation. They assured me that as long as the vehicle was registered, insured, and not visibly damaged, it could remain in my assigned spot. When her friend tried to speak, she cut him off. She yelled at him to shut up and stay out of it. She screamed that she wanted my truck and would get it. Her outburst was so loud that several neighbors came to their windows to see what was happening. She threatened to call the police who would make me get rid of it. When he tried to explain police couldn't do that, she yelled louder that they would listen to her. She went to make her call while her friend followed her inside. I decided to enjoy the show and brought out a chair, soda, and microwave popcorn. I texted Mary about what was happening and she came right over. My neighbor from the left cottage, who I'll call Mary, came to see what was happening. Mary was a 70-year-old retired teacher who had lived in the community for 8 years. She had her own history with Karen, including an incident where Karen borrowed and broke Mary's expensive blender. Mary disliked Karen, so she brought her chair next to mine and we shared popcorn while waiting. The police arrived quickly and approached Karen's door looking amused at Mary and me in our chairs. They were officers I recognized from previous visits to our community for noise complaints and minor disputes. Karen opened her door and complained about my old, broken-down truck creating an eyesore that should be removed. She exaggerated dramatically, claiming my truck leaked oil all over the parking lot and had been abandoned. The first officer asked if she meant my truck and looked at it. I rolled my eyes. When she said yes, he noted that it was clean, shiny, without dents or scratches, and had new tires. He questioned if that was really an eyesore. Karen insisted it was, saying it was 10 years old, broken, and I refused to fix it. She claimed it hadn't moved for months. I corrected her, saying it was 16 years old. The second officer looked surprised at the truck's age and told me I'd taken good care of it. I thanked him while Karen kept demanding its removal. The officer asked about my truck's history. I explained that in 16 years, I'd changed the oil every 3-4 months, washed it monthly, replaced tires 6 years ago, and bought a new battery when problems started. I showed him the maintenance records I kept in a folder inside my house, proving I was a responsible vehicle owner. When that didn't work, a mechanic found a starter problem and leaking gasket. I was waiting for a friend to help start it by tapping the starter while I turned the key, so I could get it to the mechanic. I had already scheduled the repairs for the following week. Karen said I was lying and claimed the truck hadn't moved in 3 months. I offered popcorn to the second officer, who took some, and said the truck hadn't moved in 4 days but had problems for 3-4 months. Mary confirmed my timeline, explaining how I had driven her to a doctor's appointment just last week. The first officer told Karen the police couldn't help her. My truck wasn't an eyesore or safety hazard. When Karen claimed I was lowering property values, the officer laughed and reminded her she rented in government-subsidized senior housing. He explained that parking disputes in the community were handled by management, not police. His partner asked why she really wanted my truck removed. At this point, several other neighbors had gathered to watch the confrontation from a distance. Mary stood up and delivered an amazing speech in her southern accent. She called Karen a woman of the night who wanted everything she couldn't have. Mary said Karen pulled her hair so tight she could only see backward. She told the officers Karen wanted her male friend to buy my truck so Karen could drive around. According to Mary, he would buy the truck and trade it for time in Karen's bed. Mary said Karen thought she was attractive enough to fool the police into taking my truck. She called Karen a fool and asked how they thought she got 2 big TVs in her house. Mary revealed that Karen had been overheard planning to use my truck for some kind of delivery service to make money. The first officer laughed while his partner looked shocked. He asked Karen's friend if this was true. The man looked embarrassed and admitted Karen offered him intimate time plus $50 to help get my truck. He confessed that Karen had been pressuring him for weeks to help her acquire my truck by any means necessary. He showed the officers text messages from Karen discussing their plan. Soon, both Karen and her friend were handcuffed. I heard terms like pandering, solicitation, scamming, and false complaints. The officers explained they were taking them in for attempted fraud, filing false police reports, and possible solicitation. They went to separate police cars, and the show ended. The officers took statements from me, Mary, and 2 other neighbors who had witnessed Karen's outburst. I found out later that this wasn't Karen's first encounter with the law. She had previously been evicted from another senior community for similar behavior. A background check revealed a history of petty scams and harassment complaints. I haven't seen Karen since then and hope it stays that way. Management told me she was evicted for violating community rules and creating a hostile living environment. I was able to get a temporary restraining order to prevent her from contacting me again. The male friend who tried to buy my truck came by later to apologize, explaining that Karen had manipulated him with false stories about me. I'm still waiting for my friend to help start my truck on his next day off. He works at the hospital and has been putting in extra shifts during the pandemic. I've been saving up to pay for the repairs, which should be completed next week. My mechanic friend found additional parts at a discount, bringing the total down to $330. Who knew my old truck was worth 20 minutes in bed and $50? It's strange how some people feel entitled to things that don't belong to them. Living in this fishbowl community has one advantage: front row seats to the drama. After this incident, my neighbors and I became closer, forming a small support network. We now keep an eye out for each other and share resources when needed. In our small southern college town, sometimes that includes sharing popcorn with helpful police officers. They're good people until someone like Karen pushes too far. After Hurricane Laura, when construction workers stole from me, the officers who investigated accepted water I offered them. The community eventually remodeled our quad, creating more privacy between units while maintaining the safety aspects. Some things about small-town living aren't so bad. I've since installed a security camera at my door to deter future Karen-type neighbors. My truck got fixed and continues to serve me well. a symbol of independence that no entitled neighbor can take away. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.